The course is obviously a 60k course because there's 3 loops, and the only change I think this year is that they're going to be riding in and out through town, or turning around in town. So I think there's or town might be more involved. I haven't actually seen the minutiae of the course. In any case, it's actually not dissimilar to the Foster course in terms of the hilliness. If anyone's been on Kew Boulevard, then it's not dissimilar to that again. So the very first, let's call it 8 kilometres of the course is almost like riding on Kew Boulevard. So it's they're rollers rather than actually being the vast majority of rollers anyway. So the sort of climb where you can get out of the saddle and sort of strength over it. I would recommend highly that for all the climbs in the very first lap, that you sit in the saddle and you drop it into a small gear and try and ride at 100 revs. I think athletes getting out of the saddle so early just rips a lot of oxygen and glycogen from your legs. You should always in a race be sitting in the saddle for the climbs if you can. There's a certain amount of stretching you need to do to give your back a rest, but for the majority of time you should be doing 100 revs, just ticking your legs over, not mashing a big gear. You'll see lots of people out of the saddle trying to throw their water bottles out of their backs, but steer clear of that. Just try and tick your legs over and preserve your muscle glycogen. So the first 6 to 8k, quite hilly. Then it comes into a nice flat section for probably 15 to 20k. What am I up to now? I'm up to the turnaround already. Probably 10k. And then there's some more rollers, and they're actually the last, just before the turnaround, there's when you turn off past Lake Cat Eye, I think they say. Everyone wants to say Kathy. When you turn off onto that road, it's actually it's more rollers than the first section, so there's not so many pinches, but again, stay in the saddle and just tick away. It's really crucial. And obviously once you've seen the first 30k, you know the course. Probably the most important thing for you to mention here is that on the way back into town, the hills are quite steep. So there's one extremely steep hill that you need to see in through this in and out of the town section. Again, you're going to have to get out of the saddle. If you're worried about it, take a 25 or a 27. You're much better off being able to get up there. There's people who end up walking up that hill, and it's just a disaster getting off and walking up a hill in your cleats or trying to run up a hill, because it's even hard to run up in cleats, but it's actually easy to ride in a small gear. So just be prepared, drop it down into your smallest gear. You'll need your smallest gear. I ran a 23 and I found I had to get out of the saddle, so I'd run a 25 or a 27 for sure. The last half of the course, the last 25% of the course, be extremely conservative, because it's a really difficult thing to ride when you're tired, especially that last hill before you get back to the rollers going back into town. So really take it conservatively in the last 30 k's.